So we'll start by talking about what does it mean to teach equitably. And for folks who've been at the other workshops, this might look familiar. So you can try to see if you can think about it from a different perspective. But historical and current cultural norms bend this tree of opportunities towards certain groups. And so as this first upper left image is showing, that leads to inequality or disparities in who has access to different resources. My first grader in the background. So then,
of course we didn't have one by the big playground.
I know, exactly. It's very cute. Not at all distracting or annoying ever. So anyways, equality is when you treat everybody equally. You evenly distribute your tools and assistance. And so you can see that when the tree is bent, that can make certain people have access to resources that other people still can't access, even with equal treatment. So then that leads us to this idea of equity, where you customize the tools and support to address the inequality. So you might provide additional or different tools and support to folks who have less access. And this is all a step towards what we all want to work towards, which is justice, which is fixing the system so that the tree isn't bent as much or isn't bent at all, and everybody has equal access with those tools and support. Okay, so then why focus this workshop on equity in teaching? Here's text taken from the syllabus review guide that we'll be using as our reference for this at USC, which is to recognize that with few exceptions, notably historically Black colleges and universities being the notable exceptions, higher education institutions were founded and designed to serve white students, and particularly those who are male, middle to upper class, heterosexual, able-bodied, and Christian. And despite the increasing diversity of the American college student population, many of the practices that are entrenched in higher education have not necessarily been reconfigured to equitably support, affirm, and validate students from underrepresented groups in STEM. And there's an array of references we can refer you to, but one we have here is from Maria Ong about the double bind of being a woman of color in STEM. So instructors can affirm the belonging of underrepresented students in higher education, for example, by representing their experiences in course materials, among many other things. This is to get us thinking, why do we even want to make changes if we feel like we already have a good class? So I want to start with this poll, and we will use the Annotate tool here. So you all should be able to annotate. If you go to the upper part of your screen, I think it's under View Options, but I'll check with my team in case.
Yep.
View Options, Annotate, and just put a check mark next to how often you revise your syllabus. And it could be never. This is anonymous. Oh wait, let me hide the name so it's anonymous. Now it's anonymous. It could be making small revisions each time you teach, make significant revisions, or do you make revisions while teaching? And I have a Google Doc as my syllabus, so I do sometimes make revisions, but they're always in favor of the students and or to clarify things. Great, yeah, and some people, I love the honesty. Some people are like, I really don't ever revise my syllabus, which is a lot, can be a lot of people, especially these days. So
It's great that you're here.
Yes, exactly. We're happy to have you. So I'm going to clear all our drawings, seeing that we're mostly B's, but a mix of A, B, C, and D. And then talk about what is a syllabus and why should we even bother to examine and revise it. So this is from a book on teaching and learning STEM, a practical guide, is that the course syllabus functions as a travel guide, indicating the territory to be covered on a journey from the first day of class to the final exam, the resources needed for the trip, and the traffic rules that must be observed along the way. And I love this image. We're trying to get our students up to the top of this mountain of knowledge or learning or skills. And so the syllabus is providing the route in a way and the main points that they are going to encounter along the way. And so I have another poll for you all, and we will use the Annotate tool again. What percentage of the students do you think read your syllabus after the first week? Could be a quarter, maybe around half, 3/4. Okay. And so I'm seeing a mix, but most of you are kind of like less than half, right? I love the confidence of the people that are like, most of them are. So what we'll see, no, let me clear that. So there was one study that was done about how students use the course syllabus. And in this study, they actually found that 80% of the students viewed the syllabus during the second half of the term. And this is one study. So we really want to encourage you to consider asking your students if or how they use the syllabus. How is it used in your course? And therefore that can inform how much you want to revise it. And to what extent it matters to your students. And we want to encourage you to see it as a guide so that they are directed towards it and using it more. Okay, you know what I'm realizing? Oh, yeah. Okay, right. So we have now a Q&A, and we want you to submit and upvote responses. And I'm going to ask Katie if you can put the link in the chat to think it's okay. It's in the notes of the slides if you've got it open. So the question that we want you to submit or upvote are, what are some of the purposes that you see in a syllabus? So in the chat, you'll see a link that you can click on.
Getting it.
And that should let you.
Hold on.
It's there, Rachel.
Oh, thanks, Katie. I know you're usually faster than me anyway.
So here you can type your answer to this question. What do you think are some of the purposes of a syllabus? We want to hear from you all.
And if you see answers that you maybe resonate with or agree with, you can hit the little thumbs up button right there on the right side of the response to kind of upvote it.
Are we asking what is the purpose of the syllabus from the student's perspective or from the teacher's perspective?
Which all of the above, exactly. Like, so and that distinction is important, so it can have multiple purposes. Okay, so we're seeing these come in. You can still submit or upvote if you want, but give students a framework of what the class entails. So that's a student-centered one, right? Clarify grading policies, office hours, provide a roadmap, help students learn how to succeed in the course, right? That's very student-centered. Details about grading, that helps the students understand expectations for the course. You have assignments, exams, grading, administration. Oh, I like create an environment where students feel comfortable approaching the instructional team, finding the dates and times. So we're seeing this mix, right? It has all this logistical stuff to have in it that we think is an important purpose, and it sets an environment, it helps support the students in success. And then, yeah, this idea that it's a contract between the student and the instructor. And an invitation. Oh, I like this merging, right? It's a contract and an invitation. That's a great way of seeing it. Okay. Thank you. So let's see, there's, you all always have better ideas than whatever we have on the next slide where we share our ideas. But this is from a Faculty Focus article about a student or learner-centered syllabus. And it requires that a lot of us shift from what we, the instructor, are going to cover in our course to a concern for what information and tools we can provide for our students to promote learning and development. And you all were already getting at that, right? Communicate that learning is a partnership with students, provide reasoning for the course objectives and assignments that are relevant to the student needs. So a lot of us do the instructor-centered, like, okay, I'm going to teach you this, this, and this, and it's more like, I'm going to help you learn this because that's relevant for you all as students, however it is. Warn them of potential pitfalls and provide recommendations, and consider allowing students to have some say. That one is another step, but seeing where they can have some input or choice into how the course is run, because it's a contract with them and they might enjoy that. Okay, we are going to go into breakout rooms soon to discuss an example syllabi, and we want to explain that to you all, why we're doing that. And part of it's because there's no single solution. All of us are going to come out of this workshop with different syllabi. And so in a breakout room, you get to exchange ideas and discuss so that you're better situated to adjust your own syllabus as you see fit. But we recognize people have kids, me included. So if you can't participate due to a loud kid, if you can just add like a minus in front of your name, then we'll know that and make the breakout rooms accordingly. So we respect that. So this is on to Rachel.
Yeah. Does everybody know how to put a minus sign in your name? You just rename yourself, and so you can do that by putting your mouse over your picture and clicking on the 3 dots and then clicking on rename. So anyone who wants to do that, feel free. So our next step here is to actually look at a model syllabus from this USC tool. And as Shauna said, we don't expect any syllabus to look like this. It's going to be your ideal model syllabus. But we hope that it will inspire you and give you ideas and things to think about ways that you can revise your syllabus. Next slide. Okay. So Katie will put there she is, link in the chat. And you can go to, just click on this link. And that will take you to the model syllabus. There you go, which is our example. And we'd like you to just take 5 minutes to look through the example syllabus, and then we're going to put you in breakout rooms and have you discuss it in more detail. So while you're sort of skimming through it now, just type in the chat elements that you like, that are attractive to you, that you think are inspiring, that are interested in. And we want to encourage you to do that rather than focus on what you think might be missing from the syllabus. So stay focused on the things that you actually think are interesting and inspiring. So we'll take about 5 minutes to do this. Anyone have any questions or trouble getting to the syllabus? Okay. Yeah, so let's just take another minute. Some nice observations in the chat. A lot of you commented on how visually engaging it is, inspirational, and also the tone is welcoming. Carrie talked about how it acknowledges the challenges. So there's some reality check. And looking at all of the the beginning being kind of more inspirational and bigger picture, and then getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit later. And Alex talks about explaining and justifying the class structure to get student buy-in. So that's a good observation. Student-centered language, yep. Very encouraging and learner-centered. Terrific. So thanks for those observations. And now we're gonna ask you to go into breakout rooms. Shauna, are we ready for that? Yep. Shauna's, no?
Can I use my kid as my excuse? No, let me make breakout rooms real quick. Sorry about that. I got distracted by the chat. So
okay. All right. So Shauna's going to work on breakout rooms. And I think one of the questions was, how long is this syllabus? This is just an excerpt that was chosen that they chose as an example. It's only 3 pages, but the actual syllabus is much longer, and you'll have access to that and you can look at it. You'll be able to look at that a little bit later. Or now, or later.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm that fast.
All right, you are fast. Awesome.
Okay, so we'll see you all in, let's see.
Wait.
Yep. Go ahead, Katie.
So in the breakout rooms, we ask that you, just to kind of help facilitate that, you assign some group roles. And so for this, we'd like you to have a facilitator perhaps, so maybe the person whose first name comes first alphabetically. And so as a facilitator, you kind of start the conversation going, read the instructions, and make sure everyone gets to talk. As a recorder, we have a space for some notes. So to write notes or any questions that come up, And a timekeeper might pay attention to the time to make sure that you get to the different parts of the conversation. You can always ask us for help to come into a room, and we can pop in there at any time. On the next slide, so again, when you get into your breakout room, assign group roles, but also introduce yourself to folks because you'll be in the same breakout room for the rest of the workshop. And then we have a few questions for you to think about as you talk about this example syllabus, and in particular, thinking about how this achieves some of those student-centered or learner-centered goals, which some of you mentioned in the chat. And so we put a few of those different goals there that you can maybe think about as what a learner-centered goal might be, but also to think about any additional goals or a syllabus, something that maybe sparks ideas for you. And then also imagine reading the syllabus as a student from an underrepresented group. What might be something that's welcoming or something you might appreciate out of this? And again, focus on what's there and not what's missing, because this is just an excerpt. So, you know, I'm sure there's probably like a schedule, for example, in other parts of the syllabus. Are there any questions? I'm going to put in the chat our activity guide. And on there, on the second page, is the instructions, as well as a few the prompts. And so if you see there on the third page, there will be the space to take notes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes.
So we're going to spend a few minutes really reflecting on what we mean when we're talking about having an equity-minded syllabus. Next slide. Okay, so you all have already kind of touched on this point where the syllabus is really that first impression that you're making and the most important message to your students. And it is an opportunity actually for you to open up yourself a little bit by revealing some of your own perspectives, your own beliefs, your values, any worldview you have, and of the institution, which is one of the comments that we heard in the chat. Really helping them see, you know, where you stand and how you view the world and how you view higher ed, how you view academia. These types of sort of thoughts that we have may be very, you may be very aware of them. They may be obvious to you, but not when you're not explicitly stating them in supportive ways. Your students have no idea where you're coming from, right? So I think it's something that we take for granted, but then when we allow our students into our thinking and maybe what we think about teaching, what we think about learning, what our philosophy is about learning, letting them know where we're coming from can really be a way that they can connect with you and feel like you're really on their side. It also can be a way to introduce norms and rules that can better support marginalized groups and marginalized students. And so thinking very critically about what those norms and rules are, often they're unstated and hidden, right? But making them explicit and clear can really help sort of make everyone feel more welcomed and like there is a clear path to success in your class. Go back one. Yeah. We know that in the remote environment, there are specific challenges that are even, and in terms of inequities, these inequities are even more exacerbated in the remote environment. And so we can definitely think of the syllabus as a way to really open up that door and communicate specifically about how you're going to communicate that you know, we're all in this virtual world and it's even more unclear sometimes. Students feel lost in cyberspace. So you have to be even more clear and more open and more transparent in your communication with them about how you're going to communicate and the logistics of the class and where they stand in the class. So clarifying logistics, whether you're synchronous or asynchronous, making sure they know where they stand in terms of their grade or in terms of their assignment completion on a weekly basis, rather than kind of leaving that off something that we may not think about in person, but remotely is really important. And then when and how they can engage with you, and when and how they can engage with others. So again, just being really explicit, clear, and transparent about this. We talked a little bit at the beginning about growth mindset. And so we want to think about why mindset matters. So using a growth mindset to approach teaching is especially important while being conscious of any racial and structural inequities in the class and institution. And so we're not going to go into this in detail here, but doing some self-exploration around how to kind of think about being aware, becoming more aware of your own racial identity development, being aware of the structural inequities that exist in the institution, and any policies in your classroom that may be biasing one group over another, even unconsciously, right? So just trying to help educate yourself around this. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was going to give the calculus example. So there's an example here about how to be equity-minded in terms of interpreting how you can succeed in a calculus class. So the class is based on the belief that everyone has the capability to learn calculus. How we act as individuals and as a class will be the key to accomplishing our goals successfully, right? So really that's what an example of having a growth mindset. Okay. So here's some data. This is your slide, Katie. Do you want to share?
Sure. So there's some data. There's been some research on this and really focusing on growth mindset of the faculty and how important that can be. And so they did a study where they looked at if a faculty member had a fixed or growth mindset and looked at hundreds of faculty. And they looked at the success rate or the student grades of students from white or Asian backgrounds or underrepresented minority, meaning Black, Hispanic, and Native American. And then they looked at those with the growth mindset. They saw in a fixed, there was a huge gap in success rates, whereas with the growth mindset, that completely was mostly gone, and the grades were actually higher in those particular classes. And I recently saw a talk from these same folks that they did this exact study, but on a syllabus where they had a growth mindset language within a syllabus. And they saw that it decreased the imposter syndrome feelings and then also helped increase motivation in students from first generation undergrad students. So this is kind of some evidence that thinking about how we use our language and how we think as instructors can really affect student sense of belonging and motivation.
Okay. So we want to just hold on a sec and think about, are the students going to carefully read the syllabus to notice all this equity-mindedness, right? So we're being very conscious and aware and intentional, but are students actually going to notice this? So on the next slide, we're going to ask you to annotate this. Shauna, you want to take over?
Yeah, just to think about which of these might you want to use to help your students get the most out of your syllabus on the first day. And so if Katie can let us annotate, then as I'm going through these, you all can check off the ones that you want to do. So you can plan to go over it on the first day of class, which is what a lot of folks do. And we want to encourage you to think about including at least one other idea below to get your students to engage with the syllabus. So you can have some quick polls in class about the key points on the syllabus. You could assign a short CCLE quiz on these key points. A pro tip here is that this actually saves you as the instructor a lot of time. Like all those questions you get asked in the first week of school, turn them into a syllabus quiz. Another idea is having a syllabus scavenger hunt where the students learn how to use the syllabus. Right, so you ask them questions and then as a group they try to find the responses in the syllabus. And that's a great community building opportunity because they're talking to one another and supporting one another. You can refer them to the syllabus weekly. So kind of say like, I want to remind you all, you can look at the syllabus to plan ahead, see where we're at in the course. And you might not have anything planned yet, which is also okay. And so I'm seeing a lot of responses for For A, for sure, some folks who are gonna have quick polls, a few folks thinking of assigning a quiz. I see a question mark for the scavenger hunt, and so just what that might involve is a breakout room where you ask the most commonly asked questions that students ask you. You ask the students and you say, just go through the syllabus and try to answer this to one another. Like, when's the first assignment due? Or how, you know, what's my grade based on? Or when's the first exam? You ask them instead, and then you save yourself emails and they get to answer it themselves. Okay. Back to whoever's next. Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about the reasons behind. So let's really think concretely about what we can do to make our syllabus a bit more equity-minded. So again, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of this work is based on this really great equity-minded syllabus tool, which I highly recommend you check out after this. But we're only going to go through a few different activities. One of the things that I want to bring back to when we're talking about that growth mindset language and what's on the syllabus can change, you know, how students feel within a class. And so there's 3 different language components that folks have kind of identified that can be really useful within a syllabus. So one is to have a welcoming tone, which may feel a bit, you know, more intuitive, but certainly having a tone that, like in that previous syllabus that we saw, that really communicates care and support for your students. Demystifying is another really great thing to think about, where you're thinking about providing first-time college students, for example, information on how they can succeed and really keep away from that academic jargon. So even the idea of office hours, new students might not even know what that is. And so explaining that a little bit. And then the idea of validating. And so that's where you can use that growth mindset language, you know, thinking about the belief that they can all succeed at some point within the class, and then also just validating their identities. We have a little Annat activity for you yet again. I want to know, or not annotate, if you go to the participant panel, you'll see a little couple people that says participant. You'll see something that looks like this. See some thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you think this statement is welcoming or unwelcoming? These are my office hours. If you need to contact me outside of my office hours, you may email me, call my office, or contact the department and leave a message. Let's see. Let me know if you're having trouble finding those thumbs up, thumbs down buttons.
And you might need to click on more in the participants tab to see them.
Mm-hmm. If you annotate. So I'm seeing a few thumbs downs, a couple thumbs up, some perhaps undecided. So I think there's some mixed thoughts on this, but we have an example here of what might be maybe slightly more welcoming way to word this, right? So it's not necessarily unwelcoming, but something that might be a little more welcoming is to welcome students to contact you outside of class, as opposed to if you need to. And so that's like a very small change, but you can see how that might change a little bit how a student might feel in feeling welcome to come and talk to you as the instructor, as opposed to only when they need to. Might feel a bit imposter syndrome, where if I show that I need to come, you know, that might make me feel weak or not such a great student. So another one, I just want to give an example because we're running short on time, is a less welcoming way to say, come prepared to actively participate in class. This is the best way to engage in learning. You could say, all of us in class, you, me, your peers, we have a responsibility to create this environment where we can all learn. I expect everyone to participate so that we can all benefit. So explaining why we want you to participate in class instead of just, you know, the typical language of penalizing folks if they don't. So there's a lot of different examples in that syllabus tool that we mentioned, and we shared this link to this particular one of different ways you can make things sound a bit more welcoming. There's also some examples here of validating or demystifying tones. So for example, this is a learning process and requires work. So a lot of validating language was on that example syllabus that you saw. Or demystifying, recording the majority of lectures for you to watch, but I recommend you create a designated time each week to watch them. And so these are some things that you could do to maybe help students understand what they could do in an unfamiliar environment. Now, again, this is really important in this remote environment, right? To think about demystifying. And so how you succeed here, giving resources on that might be very valuable and beneficial, especially when it comes to mental health and well-being. Students are really struggling right now, as maybe you are as an instructor or faculty member as well. So this is something that you might want to think about giving your students. So a little reflection question for you. You don't have to answer it in the chat, but just to reflect on some things that you might want to demystify in your own class.
Okay, and the other thing that you could be thinking about here is what's the focus? Chris got at this a little bit, but is the focus the content or the student? And so a typical content-focused syllabi that looks like a lot of our syllabi, myself included, is like, here's the date, here's the topic, here's the readings, here's the assignments. It's very clearly laid out. But this is from the Faculty Focus article. Another way of thinking about this, to make it more learner-focused, is to sort of describe it to the students. Here's what you'll be doing, right? Here's the questions and themes that we'll explore. So you're fostering their curiosity, right? Like, what was being reconstructed during the reconstruction? Does rapid industrialization change everything? Here's you telling them why they're doing these assignments. Here's how you prepare for discussions. Here's some quick reminders. And so this is more learning focused than content focused. And in this faculty focus article on the next slide, we'll see how the students responded. So students responding to the content focused syllabus said, like, the instructor seems fairly harsh. Reading the end where work won't be accepted regardless of the reason showed me this is a professor who isn't out to help or understand. They seemed cold and robotic and strict. And I think this happens a lot where we might not actually be that, and we usually aren't that, but students perceive that if we have language that's more content focused. And then the other, if we advance the slide again, we can see the learner focused syllabus quotes where the instructors seem very approachable and encouraging towards their students, helping their students become better thinkers and students, and seem to really care that the students learn the material so the syllabus can communicate. Thank you. So as we get ready for our next breakout, this will be where, this will help you use your syllabus to promote success. And so you're gonna rotate roles. So this, you'll see on the activity guide what your new roles are. And you're gonna review examples of syllabus language. And this will be a shorter breakout because you'll just be reading a quote from a syllabus and thinking about how you wanna revise that. So in your group, you can rewrite the language. We added a second quote in case you're a fast-moving group and wanna scroll down to your second quote. But in the 8 minutes, just take time to think about how you wanna rephrase it. Any questions? And good, Katie is showing you on your activity guide where you're at. It looks like it's page 4. What your roles are, which you'll rotate, and then where you will write the revised example. So I know we really zoomed you into breakout 1 fast, so any questions before you go into breakout 2? I was getting to watch as you all were trying to revise it on the Google Doc, and it is interesting. Some of them are really hard and that they seem like, okay, they direct people to resources. I'm not sure how to make this friendlier. And so it was great to see what you all came up with. But for our debrief, we're gonna just pick a few groups to share their revised statements. So who would like to share their statement? Either because it was challenging or they really like it. And if not, I'll just randomly call on someone. Okay, so what about group 3? Just because someone's highlighting that. Can someone from group 3 please share? And I'll say, can the recorder from group 3 please share?
Sure, that was me.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Whitney. And actually Katie recorded it for me because she was also in our group, so thanks, Katie. So yeah, this one was a little bit difficult for us because we thought it was important to give students kind of a guideline for how many hours to work outside of the, class time and lecture time.
One sec, Whitney. I'm just wondering, Katie, is it easy for you to show the Google Doc so we can see the text that Whitney's referring to?
Oh yeah, sorry, I can also read it.
No, we got it. There we go. Group.
Okay.
Whitney, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, and so we felt that the language was maybe not very welcoming or would maybe turn students off from wanting to study for the class. And so we wanted our revision to kind of reflect, students engaging in the course for a certain amount of hours outside of the course, but not making it a requirement or anything like that, but more of a recommendation. And so, yeah, I guess we can read the revision. So typically successful students have spent up to 10 hours a week studying for this class. And we also wanted to include within studying that could be, include a variety of activities like reviewing PowerPoints, practicing problems, and working with others.
Yeah, and I love that you converted it into sort of a guide to help them, right? Rather than like, you will need to do this, but like, here's how to be successful, and let me elaborate. So thank you, Whitney. Thanks. Okay, and so we can keep moving on, Katie, but everyone's welcome to look at other revisions as they want. And now we'll move on to the next slide where you get to examine your own syllabus.
So we're going to get ready to go into our last breakout room. And so what we want to do now is look through your own syllabus. Hopefully you brought one with you. And we're going to ask you to use the chat to submit any questions that come up for you. So now we want you to do a little critical thinking interrogation of your own syllabus based on everything that we've just learned. So identify some of these elements of your syllabus. Does it incorporate a welcoming tone? Is the language validating from students from all backgrounds? If you were an underrepresented student, would you feel represented in your syllabus? Or if you were a first-gen student, is it clear on how to succeed in this class? And so, are there references to time management or study skills or how to navigate the university? Note some places that could be adjusted to make your syllabus more equitable, and that's where you're going to focus your time in your breakout room. So take a few minutes to do this. Actually, we're going to take about 10 minutes. Yep. 5 minutes? 5. Okay, 5 minutes. And then you'll have 15 minutes in your breakout room. So Gary, that's a really good question. I'm going to answer it out loud for everyone. What is a first generation student? Is a student who is the first person in their family to go to college. And there are other definitions too. Is that right? Is it necessary? It could be only one parent has gone to college, but for the most part, they are the first person to go to college in their family.
I think technically it's both parents. You need both to have not gone. Or if you have one, then it's like you're technically at that upgraded title.
Take the last 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts or type any questions in the chat that come up as you try to make these changes. Okay, let's bring everybody back together. And we do want to point out for those of you doing the Out of the Box initiative, which is some folks in physical and life sciences, this is the time that we're trying to give you during our workshops to work on your deliverables for that. So on the next slide, you will get ready to go into breakout number 3, where you investigate and review your syllabus and discuss it with your group. And so you can rotate roles again and just give each person 3 to 5 minutes to discuss their plans and get feedback. And we encourage the facilitator to keep track of time, but think about what elements are on your syllabus that you want to change to make it more equitable. What questions do you have? Like, these decisions are easy to talk about, but hard to implement in practice. And then record your group's biggest takeaway in the Google Doc in the activity guide. And if any questions come up, you can always click ask for help, and then we'll come back together. So anybody else have any questions before you go into your breakout rooms? Great.
I have a question, Shana.
Yeah, sure.
It's about the length of the syllabus, especially in the context of remote what would be your advice on should we have a short or long syllabus? Because we have the CCLE environment where we also have things that we can say. So if you're saying a lot on the syllabus, so what is your advice or your takeaway on that?
Right, right. I already added myself as the person with the 20-page syllabus, but I think the response there is just an easily readable and navigatable syllabus. So, and I think that can mean different things. It can be a short syllabus that directs them to additional resources information, or it could be a syllabus that has a very clear table of contents that directs them to what they need. But really, I haven't seen in the literature any recommendations. Every syllabi should be exactly 3.5 pages. It kind of depends. I don't, if anyone else wants to chime in, but it's more that it's easy to navigate and read and understand.
And I think that you all noticed with this model syllabus that the more engaging it was, the more inviting it was, the more interesting it was to read, right? So if you're just giving them a bunch of stats or logistics or data, that may turn them off and they may not be as interested. They may not be as compelled to read a longer syllabus. So I think that's one other thing to think about. Can you write it in such a way that is actually engaging and interesting and compelling for students to actually want to spend the time reading? And I'm not suggesting that that's easy at all to do, but maybe worth the time.
Oh, usually some people are.
No, Chris, it's not. Time is not our friend.
It's not. Yeah, Katie, if you can share the screen and we do want to encourage you to review the syllabus proactively, becoming aware of what's equitable. Developing your syllabus is an ongoing process, and having someone you trust give you feedback can really help. And so sometimes we have folks in this workshop exchange information and then review one another's syllabus if you'd like. And this syllabus review guide it's not at all short, but it's fantastic at helping you go through every aspect of your syllabus in order to make it more equitable. And we just gave you a small taste of it. On the next slide, we have on our CEILS website actually a whole syllabus guide that will let you click on different tools. If you have an existing syllabus you want to evaluate, if you're writing a syllabus from scratch, we have a template in Google Doc or in Word that you can just use for this. There's also a syllabus builder website. There's language you can see, there's sample syllabi you can look at, and there's even some tips on how to have a syllabus scavenger hunt. And I did get a private question in the chat if I could share my syllabus. So what we have our syllabus template from CEILS, which was very much based on my syllabus. And so you can take a look at that and see how long it is, but how there's a table of contents. And I was just looking at it during the break and I realized I should do the USC Equitable Syllabus Tool on it. So we haven't yet implemented that on our template, but I hope that helps the person who asked and anyone else.
Shauna is the queen of tables of contents.
Yes.
Really good at that.
Exactly. So I learned that from her, and so mine is a little similar in the front, if that helps. But it's very long.
Oh, yours is beautiful too, Katie. Do you want to share that in the chat?
Yeah, let me share yours,
I'll do
Katie.
that. I'll have to find a different link for it. Sorry. Yeah. Give me a moment.
No, but I was reviewing.
We also just want to not overwhelm you, right? I mean, this is sort of like you can go on and on and on and improving, and it can feel endless. So pick a few things that you want to revise, and it doesn't have to look like the model that we gave you. I think a lot of people that I talk to were worried about, I don't know how to format it this way, and I don't know how to input pictures, and so do the simplest thing to start with, and then you can. I don't know. When I started doing this, I got into it. It kind of became a creative process that became fun. So. That is just another way to think about it.
Then I see Gary in the chat specifically wanted sample syllabi that have addressed remote learning. And I think, Rachel, we got one from Sheva at another workshop.
Yeah.
So maybe I can dig that up while you're wrapping this up to share.
Great.
Yeah, the one I just shared does have a little bit of that, but it's a graduate student course. So it's maybe a little bit different than what you might do. But Rachel, that's both Rachel and my syllabus.
Oh yeah, we can't see it, Katie. We're seeing a different screen, I think. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I just put the link in the chat.
Oh, the link. Oh, okay.
To check it out.
Oh, perfect. Great.
But yeah, so there's a little bit of like impacts of COVID in our online etiquette and privacy, something like that. So it has a little bit of wording there too. So like mental health and well-being and something I feel strongly about. So I added that in this section, for example. Again, this one's kind of long, so not everyone has to be that long.
Yep. Okay, so we want to thank you for spending your 2 hours with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. We hope that this was useful and gets you started and thinking and inspired about how to think about your syllabus in a different way. We have some workshops coming up through the rest of the quarter. We talk about equitable assessment design on Monday, and then we have a 2-part workshop on engaging students. The first part, which is just an overview on how to engage students, and then we talk more specifically about collaborative learning in the second part. So we hope to see you at our workshops coming up. If not, please let us know how we can support you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
everybody.
rest of your day and weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.